Also, keep in mind, if you're one of those people that are interested in owning a wood boat, insurance for a wood boat, on the contrary, is very hard.
Let's talk about wood boats for a second, just in case anybody's had a self lobotomy lately. Let's talk about wood boats.
The never-ending wood boat.
Well, here, the best way to sum this up: car dealership or a guy that owns some dealerships over in Bay City, where we bought the last wood boat. He owns 3 classic wood boats, and they're beautiful. I mean, they belong in museums.
Finished products.
Yes. What does it take to maintain 3 wood boats? It takes 2 people, 50 weeks a year. He employs 2 boat guys. That's all they do is work on those 3 boats. And they've been working for him for years. So if by any chance, I mean, I'm not talking about your little 22-foot Chris Craft runabout 40, 50-foot wooden vessels. I mean, you're in a different tax bracket than us if you're going to own one of those and not touch it. Because we put in our wood boat any given year 1 to 2 weeks just to get it in the water. Mm-hmm. That's not beautifying it and just pristine.
Just making it seaworthy.
That's making it seaworthy. That's making it run. Boy, 2 weeks. 2 weeks of working on it. And then there's those odd years where we work on it for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Fixing this and changing this rot and whatever. And we're about done with the wooden boat. At some point, we're working on the first video sequence for her boat.
It isn't that we don't love the wood boat, but he's experienced a wood boat long before I came along, and he just felt it right that I experienced a wood boat before.
Yes, because I almost sunk one.
Before we move on to a steel hull.
One of the other boats, I was sinking it. I was in the middle of sinking it, and we came around Point Betsy. This is before Katie, and came around Point Betsy, coming back from South Manitou Island, and there was 14-foot waves at Point Betsy. The wind was blowing straight out of the south, and I was back in that little bay there, and I was coming down from the island, and when I left the island, there was a little wind, and then there was a lot of wind. And then I got down to Point Betsy, and that wind was out of the south, but over the next 2 hours, that wind was going to walk its way over to the west. Now, at that point, where I was, in 2 hours, there was not going to be no shelter. And this particular old wood boat, 12 mile an hour, maybe 13, that's all it ever went. It should have done like 28, but 12 mile an hour is what it went. So, there was a decision to be made. Stay and know that you're going to just probably not make it. Probably be up on a beach somewhere with that's a whole other set of problems you don't want to have. Or, Point Betsy to Frankfurt Breakwell's just not that far. I'd have to walk it off 2-3 miles. It ain't far. Till you come around there and there's 14 footers. And then it becomes a marathon. And that old wood boat would come off the top of one wave and it would just free fall through the air. And it would land. And the whole boat would just shudder. And by the time we got down about a half mile to the breakwall, and we weren't pushing, we were like 1,200 RPM, just trying to get from one wave to the next wave, to pulling the throttle back, trying not to shoot off the top of them, just trying to get in there. And by the time I got into Frankfurt, I knew I had problems. Because at that point, I had, the bilge up forward, and your low spot in those boats is up forward. They taper up like this, so all your bilge water runs forward, you have a forward pump. And at that point, it's about this deep, about a foot, maybe 13 inches to the cabin deck. And the water was already up to there a mile from the pier heads. And you just keep going, you just keep going. And this was back in the days when I liked to drink. And I got into Frankfurt there and come across the lake there. And I just lined her up. And at that point, the water was probably about 4 inches above the cabin floor. And I'm out of the waves, but the water's still coming up. And I got her lined up with the launching ramp. And in the back of my head, worst comes to worst, I'm driving this thing up the ramp as far as it's going. And I got off the ramp and I threw the anchor there and I'm just sitting there in the boat watching. And the pumps are running and they're not keeping up. And I watched it and drank a beer and it come up another inch. And I drank another beer, come up about a half an inch. And drank a few more beers and the water stopped coming up. And then drank a few more beers and the water started to slowly go down. The pumps were keeping up. Now, hindsight being...
Those beers don't just make women look good, right? That's how it's working.
So, and you really can't appreciate this boat without understanding. My first big cabin cruiser. Bought this big cabin cruiser with a hole about this long and this wide, 2 foot by 18-inch hole in the bottom of the boat that they'd been pulling it out with a trailer with the pads and the lifts and everything, and one of the pads had went through because it was in between the braces, and they went right through the deck, and that was how I only paid $1,500 for my first big wood cruiser, and then I only paid about another $5 for the piece of plywood at Home Depot and the box of drywall screws that fixed the hole. And that's what was out in 14 footers. And oddly enough, that's not where the boat was leaking. The boat was leaking everywhere else. So anyways, the boat doesn't sink. By next morning, it's sealed up enough that it's holding its own and the pump's cycling on and off. And the wind's still blowing, and end up sitting 2 days in Frankfurt. By the time I left Frankfurt, the boat wasn't leaking anymore. And what had happened was we old double plank mahogany hull, and we shook it so hard it probably shook caulking and everything out and loosened everything up. But then once everything was all loose, the board swelled some more. They just swelled up a little bit more, and that boat sealed. And that to this day, and that was 20 years ago, that was the best I ever seen a wood boat sealed. After that ride and almost sinking it, which I don't recommend, it sealed. That pump didn't turn on once a week. I mean, that boat sealed. But yeah, all I can tell you as you've heard from a few different experiences, there is no feeling worse than watching that water come up and everything's removing it and it's not going back down. It's a horrible feeling. So, and any of those big wood boats, run away. Unless you're rich. For starters, most marinas want insurance on a wood boat, on any boat that's sitting at their dock.
Right. And
the only place that I know of that will even insure a wood boat is Haggerty. And it's got to pass a marine survey and you have to have a passing marine survey and give it to Haggerty to insure it. They're just not worth the headache. They're neat. We love our wood boat. I love the 58. I like the 58 so much that we now own a 66. Owens. And our son is named Owen. So, I mean, I love wood boats. This is the last wood boat. And you'll see her boat. The boat that's going to be replacing it, that we are working on now, is an Inland Seas Clipper 32-footer, steel hull. And this is when we get done with this boat, it's going to be a beautiful boat. I mean, she's been putting a lot of work into it, and it's going to be a sad day for the old wood boat. This is probably, every year I say this, but this is probably its last year. We'll see if
We'll
that
see.
holds true.
We'll see.
Any other notes on there? Anywhere we covered?
Stringer talk and transom.
Oh, stringer talks and transoms. Yes. Again, a boat with bad stringers or bad transom, run away. I mean, we could go into length on this, and then the other thing is what are you willing to live with? Our 222 does have a bad spot in the transom, or in the not the transom, but in the stringer. And it's been plated to get past that bad spot, and it's worked fine for us. So when you are talking about these old boats, you really do have to ask yourself, what are you willing to live with? Because anytime we start talking about 20-plus-year-old boats,
there's going to be things wrong. There is no perfect older boat.
At least not that we've found. And even if you do find it, chances are you're not going to want to pay what they want.
Or not long after you purchase it, something's going to give.
Right.
You'll find something that isn't going to last much longer after the purchase.
Well, and that's always a consideration. Why are they getting rid of the boat? Mm-hmm. We knew in Chicago, that he was trying to get rid of the boat. There
was something he was not sharing. Right. Because he knew that it would probably be the end of the deal.
If you were to get a boat from us, and by no means we never get rid of boats. We like them too much. But I mean, like when I do sell a boat, because I do once in a while. On occasion. When you leave, I'm hoping for the best. I mean, I am hoping you don't have a problem with it. And most honest people, good-hearted people, and there's some that aren't, but most of them are going to be forward with you, and they are going to hope when that boat leaves that it runs and keeps running and keeps on running, and they never see it again. Sorry that the video cut out right there. That was the end there. We filled the camera up, and there wasn't no storage space. So we'll throw this little voiceover in and catch you next time. Hope you enjoyed this little series. Like, subscribe, comment. Have a good evening.